Hey guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Staying Sweet, the podcast. I'm joined today by the wonderful India Hogg. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
So I'm India. I currently run an agency called Trendie. I have been doing that for the last 6 months, took the leap from my full-time job working at the Yacht Week, and kind of now I help brands around the world to build their social presence, content creation, and help with their strategy. But yeah, so I get to travel, and I've kind of like mixed what I love doing into work. So as much as like it sounds cliche, do what you love, but for now I like it, love it. So yeah,
that's good. And did you study social media? Like, what was the kind of intention when you first sort of left for the world of work? Like, did you always know what you wanted to do, or has it kind of pivoted based on like new skills you've obtained?
Yeah, I mean, I went to the University of Nottingham and did international media and communications with Spanish. So I literally only wanted to go to Nottingham. It was so weird. I like put so much pressure on myself for A-levels, but I've always been really creative. So A-levels, I really struggled just with like the exam pressure and all that sort of thing. And that was the course I wanted to do. And I was like, okay, I'm going here, or I don't know what my other option was. I was like, I'm not going to go anywhere else. So yeah, but I ended up getting in, which was like amazing at the time. And then it was quite an academic degree in terms of like Nottingham itself, like all my friends doing like economics and all that sort of thing, but I always did like stuff throughout uni, like on the side. Like I worked for a company called Pollen, that doesn't exist anymore, but we won't talk about it. But it was like a really cool experience. So I got into like the event space, working for like music festivals, and I also worked at my student night. So yeah, I did a few things on the side because obviously I loved my degree. I loved studying it. It was like mix of journalism and like politics and like media. I just loved it, and I think that's given me a good foundation for what I do now. But the creative stuff and like the actual like, you know, getting the contacts and the networking came with like the outside stuff I did with my degree. But yeah, and then I finished uni and I was like, okay, I want to be an au pair in Madrid, and then that fell through. And then I was like, okay, everyone has jobs out of uni, and all my friends had like these grad schemes, and I was like, no, I want to take a few months, like get my Spanish really good. And that fell through literally a week before I was meant to go. So I was like, okay, great, regroup. Obviously at the time, like when you first get the no's and the like rejections, it's like always like, okay, this isn't part of the plan, like this isn't supposed to happen, but like it's like shit at the time. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah. Swear away, honey.
It's just like really shit at the time. Now looking back, I'm like, it was all meant to happen like that. And then I panic applied to like a load of jobs, and I was like, okay, I like social media. Like I've always like taken pride in like photography, and like, you know, video didn't really come then, but obviously we've only just seen that the last few years. But yeah, I always liked making things look nice, putting things together. But yeah, and then got a job at a social agency after a few rejections from jobs, got rejected from Yacht Week, and then I reapplied the following year after everything, and then got it. But at the time I was like, okay, this is really shit that I'm like getting a load of no's, but it was good. So I worked at the agency for 3 months in London. I won't name the agency, but I was like, it was not great. Was
that like a PR sort of
It was
vibe?
like, it was specialising in, it's kind of like what I do now, but it was like for companies like in, it was very much like they were doing it for, it wasn't very authentic. Like it was kind of like money driven, and like obviously it was a big-ish agency, but it was a startup. So the founders were like, you know, just they weren't doing the work, they were just managing it. And it's like, we were just doing everything for them, and it was kind of obviously because we were working for them, but like, but it was more the fact, exactly. It was just more the fact, like, hang on, what are we doing this for? Like, these brands don't even know what they're getting out of this. Like, they're just paying a ridiculous fee for just like stuff that I don't even like doing. I'm not passionate about it. I'm just doing it and ticking it off and being like, these are my tasks I need to do. I wasn't passionate about it. I think now I work with brands that I love and I'm like super passionate about. But yeah, at the time, so I did that 3 months, and then I was like, oh God, is it really bad if I quit? Like, straight out of uni, like, that's so embarrassing. Like,
there's this weird pressure, isn't there, to stick in a job for at least a year. I remember
100%.
I had that kind of drilled into me at uni. You must be there for at least a year for it to count.
Yeah,
your
yeah,
CV.
yeah.
But would you say that that's like totally irrelevant to this industry now? Like, do people
Oh
really
my
care?
god. Oh my god, it's so relevant. I've definitely, yeah, it's still a pressure. Like even like, I mean, now working for myself is such a different ballgame. But you do think like, hey, like I've learnt so much in the space of so few months in comparison to just plodding along in like a typical like working for someone, and you kind of you're like the wall, like the ceiling just seems so low in terms of what you can achieve when you're just like working for someone. And that's not to say that I learned a lot, and to be honest I feed a lot of like even the agency work and like how I run my own stuff. Now I'm like, okay, I won't do that, and I will do this, you know. But there is such a pressure, and I think I speak to friends now and they're always just like, hey, like, you know, I can't leave because I need to hit the 2-year mark, or I need to hit the 3-year. And I'm like, but do you enjoy it? Like, do you enjoy it? Because I'm always so, maybe I'm dramatic, but I'm like, you know, you just never know in life.
Yeah,
so like, what if you haven't even got 2 years?
Yeah.
Like,
or they could fire you. They could make you redundant.
Oh my god, exactly. Like,
and then what have you done? You've like slogged away.
Exactly. It's one of those things that I think it's the pressure that's always going to be there, because there's going to be around you, there's going to be people around you, especially with my friends that are in like, you know, they were doing grad schemes, and obviously you do have to stay for the 2 years. But for me and like the industry that we're in, like it's kind of just like get the contacts, get the experience, take like in every job I'm just like, okay, take everything from that job and then next, you know. So rather than just being like, okay, well I need to stay here for a bit longer until I get this, it's like no, just like keep going. I think how I describe like my life since leaving uni is literally like being on like a really fast train and like not stopping. I'm like, okay, I've taken something from that stop, and it's like, no, keep going. So yeah, I think especially in our industries, it's all about networking, making a good impression, building the foundation. Like, you know, like I remember when we met, it was like, I was like, okay, this girl is like on my vibe, like
match,
exactly. And I think I really, with people like that, I think when you get the right energy as people and like the same, like, you know, just the same vibe, it's like people do remember that. And it's like, I don't know, I have clients now that I've met on like nights out.
Like we literally met on a night out.
Like, genuinely, I am always networking. Like I'm like, we were literally friends.
I love that about you, because it's almost like it's not a bad thing. Like some people see it as like, oh, she's switched on with work, but it's like, why would you let that opportunity pass you by when you're in a room full of opportunities?
Oh, 100%. But you just never know. Like I think I see opportunity in everything, and I get like, even now I get my friends involved in like everything I can. Like, oh, I've got a friend for that, or I know there's someone for that. It's like you make these little connections between people, you know, and like, you know, with like clients now, I'm like, okay, I know someone that can do that for you. Like when you just have this like pool of people that you can, and again, like I go to things now and then it's people are like, oh, how do you know this person? Or like, I know this person. It's like, it's so nice. And you straight away, you get that, you almost get that respect if it's like a client thing or a work thing. But yeah, I have no shame in getting LinkedIn out on a night out. Like I have absolutely no shame. Like it's so funny.
Forget Insta, whip out LinkedIn.
No, I'm not joking. It's so bad. But I think like even now I'm like, I look back and I've made connections like years ago with people on LinkedIn and they see like I'll put stuff about what I'm doing now. And it's like, oh, I'm looking for someone to do social media. Like, oh, I'm like, oh, I've got this opportunity. This person needs this. It's like, you just never know. And I think it's always just having the mindset of just seeing opportunity in everything. And I think it's difficult. And don't get me wrong, I didn't think that before. Like, as I said, like with A-levels and like uni, I stressed way too much. Like, I think now I'm like, things don't stress me out like they did. Like I used to have quite bad anxiety, like just like most like people do during exam seasons. It's not an easy time. Like I've got my younger sister doing A-levels now, and it's like the fact that we're quite similar, and I always want to just tell her like, you're good, like you can talk to people. Like
also life gets better after that.
Oh my
era
god,
of your life.
yeah, it
like,
really
things
does.
Change.
Yeah, 100%.
So what would be your thoughts on someone who maybe like, I feel like with what we do, if you don't shout about your success, no one's going to know about it. Like, what is your opinion on somebody who is like, I've achieved X, Y, Z, obviously it like gets your foot in the door, and like
Yeah.
someone might see a post of yours and think, oh, I want to work with her because she's
Yeah.
doing this or she's achieved this.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on people that kind of disregard that and think like, oh, why are they talking about themselves again? Because with social media, there's a fine line between.
There's a fine line.
Like, oh
Yeah.
God, here she goes, or
Yeah.
here he goes.
I know for a fact people are like, oh, she's posting again, like she's on holiday again, and I'm just like, people will get so sick of it. But I do think that, yeah, in our industry, you have to be like cringe in a way. Like you have to just post about it and scream about it. Don't get me wrong, like there's things that I don't like my actual agency itself, like I don't have a website. It's all through like word of mouth. But I think when it comes to the whole content creation, you need to show that you're good at it. And I think that's what I say to my friends that are like, you know, they're interested in they're like, oh, you know, I love making content, but I just don't know how to start. It's like, literally just start. Like I remember when I started, I was like, no, obviously no one was watching it at all. Just like anyone who starts, you've got to start somewhere. And I was just doing, because I remember I really started doing it when I was doing my ski season, and I was just taking videos of everything. I was working at this chalet as a chalet host, and I just was like videoing everything. For me, it was like the life that it was, like everything around it was like amazing. And I was like, little do people know that I was like scrubbing toilets and like serving the food, but like I loved just capturing everything. And obviously now I look back on it, I'm so glad that I have all those memories and stuff. But that turned into like such a career move, because obviously it was like I just didn't care. And I think my friends love them, absolutely no shade, love them to bits. But I remember like when we were doing stuff, we had opportunities like go to things and like as friends, like just through people we know, and then we were taking videos and like taking photos of everything. And then I was like, girls, we should do something with this. Like group influencing is like not a thing. Like we love taking pictures, like blah blah blah. And they were just like, oh no, like that's kind of embarrassing. And I was just like, I was like, okay. And then obviously at the time didn't know that it would lead to like what I'm doing now, but I just started it. And that's why my TikTok, I named it The Girls Who, because I was like, well, it's only me, but I can't turn
Would you ever want to work with like other people, collaborate? Because I feel like with your line of work, you seem like a very collaborative person. Like,
I do love it. But yeah, what were you going to say at the end?
I was just going to, just in terms of like how people could work with you, is that something that you do? Like kind of explain in more detail like how you find your creators and how you work with them. Like what characteristics do they have? Like what's a person to you that you're like, I want to work with you?
Yeah.
Who is that person?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. And I struggle with that answer like now, and I ask myself that when I want to like expand, and a lot of the time like I'll get my friends involved and all that sort of thing, but just someone that is like super just creative and just doesn't care. Like I think as well, what I find with the events that I go to and the things that I go to, you do have to be extremely sociable, extremely like, you know, put yourself out there, like, can I take a video of you? Or like, do you mind if I do this? And like, oh my God, at the time, I remember like when I was working at Yacht Week, and I was just like, oh my God, this is just me on my own. Like going up to these people that are probably like, oh God, not the social media girl again. Like, and I didn't, whereas I love doing it with people because it's so much more like,
and it's so nice, isn't it, when you find someone that like doesn't mind it.
Yeah.
Which is why whenever I see a camera, like someone's doing social stuff, I'm like, I'll help.
Yeah.
Or like, I'll do something, I'll talk. Because it's like, why wouldn't you help them? Like,
no,
if you're someone who's keen to do it, like it's a win-win for both of you.
I know. It's honestly the most humbling thing when you're like on the street and like you're trying to take content.
Like, go away.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, okay, I will. Like, it's fine. But I don't know, I think, to be really honest about it, I would love someone that has just the same like hunger for it as well. I mean, at the end of the day, like I started doing it out of pure fun of just like being creative and like doing that. But I don't know, like I feel like if I find like a mini me, then I'm like, they're obviously just going to want to like work for themselves too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I need someone that can like, you know, they want to learn. They're like really keen to learn, because I look at stuff that I've made like a year ago and I'm like, God, like that's not great. Like the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I think it's being in the right places as well. And I think, like, even with my sister, I'm like, I get her involved with stuff. I'm like, oh, you should come to this event with me. And like, you know, if you want to get into content, like, obviously she can absolutely forge her own path. I'd love her to work with me one day. But like, I'm like always just like, such a cool way to meet people, whether you're interested in the content or not. But I don't know.
What advice would you give to someone who maybe wants to network more and has that like that drive to do it, but they don't really know like where to go or who to meet? Like what things could they do to kind of get themselves out there? I mean, you mentioned LinkedIn on a night out. I feel like that's a good bit of advice.
It's a good one. It's a good one. And I strongly recommend that one. But I think you'd be surprised. I think the amount of people that I've spoken to that are in similar industries that want to help is like, you know, and I think you'd be the same and I'm the same, where like, you know, I see someone I get messages like, or just people I know being like, how are you doing that? And I'm like, I just want to help, you know? And I think that's in that sense, I think you'd be surprised how willing people are to just like help you out or like even like mentor you. And that's not to say I'm in a position to like mentor people, but like I have mentors now that I'm like, oh, it's really nice. Like
thank goodness for them.
Yeah. And I think that's why, like, I remember I'd messaged someone who then got me in contact, like referred me. I'd never met her in person, but I messaged her on not LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. No, on Instagram. And I was like, I really love what you're doing. Like, I love following your journey. Like, your content's amazing and all that sort of thing. Not asking for anything at all. It was genuinely because I liked watching it and I felt like I was learning. It was really inspiring to just watch what she was doing. Anyway, she was like, oh, like, thank you so much. Fine, no response. It's in like, it was like, that was, it was just like, it's not a carry on conversation. Where it was like, I didn't want anything out of it. I was just like, I love your stuff.
Just to let you know.
Yeah. And then she was like, oh, thank you so much. So sweet about it. And then a couple months down the line, I then get like an email from this brand who's now like a client now. They were like, oh, we're looking for, you know, social media, like management and like content creation. And then when I had the interview and stuff, when I had did the proposal for them and everything, they're like, oh, so-and-so referred you. And I was like, oh my God, that's so weird. I've never met her, but I literally, that's so nice of her.
That's so lovely.
Yeah, like you'd be surprised. I think with your answering your question is like, just put yourself out there. Like you absolutely have nothing to lose. Like absolutely nothing to lose. Like go over. It's the same as like, with like dating, like you actually have nothing to lose.
So true.
Like who cares? Like if they never speak to you again, fine. Like it's so fine. But like
sometimes you have to risk the rejection, or like risk it not going anywhere.
Yeah, and you never know. Like there are conversations where like you're like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like I'm sure like we're gonna work together, or like I'm sure that's gonna happen. And sometimes it doesn't. But you just never know in a few years' time, or like. You just never know how it will connect. And that's the thing with my situation. It's like I've had things from like years ago that have like come out the water again or come out the woodwork again. And I'm like, God, if I hadn't gone over and just said, hi, like, love what you're doing.
Yeah. It's like the night that we met, actually. Yeah. I nearly, like, there was like no trains running. It was pouring rain. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to actually make it out. And I could only be out for 2 hours because my trains were so rubbish. And I was like, I just had a gut instinct, weirdly, that like I needed to go out.
Oh my God, I'm so like that.
I don't want to be like a weirdo, but I was like, there's a reason why I need to go out.
No, I'm so
and it's
like
a multitude of things, but like sometimes you just have to follow that intuition.
100%.
And like even if it goes nowhere, you just never know.
Yeah. Like I so agree with that. I'm always like, I never know.
Love to see the
I say oh my God, I could not agree more. I think this all the time because I'm like, you know, I've been like saying yes. As I say, with like the fast train like concept, I'm like, I've just been saying yes to everything. Obviously now I say no to things. I'm like, okay, is it actually, do I need to do it? But before, when I was like building my portfolio and just like when I was still working and taking on freelance stuff, I was like, yeah. Oh, I'll go, like, no matter how tired. I was. Or like, you know, when I was just like, oh my God, I shouldn't really go. I should really have like just not like look after myself and just like chill. But I was like, no, I'm going, or like I'm doing it. It literally happened to me this weekend. And as an example, I'd gone out and it was with a work thing and it was ended up being a whole day thing and an evening thing. And I was like, and it was a weekend, so I was like, fine, but like weekends don't really exist like with like the stuff that we do, but that's fine because whatever. But I then was like, oh god, I can't wait to just chill on Saturday, like, you know, just like regroup. And then I get a call being like, you can come to the same event again today. There's like there's this like someone there, I won't name him, but like he is really like high up in like the hospitality world. And I was like, oh god, I have to go. I have to go. Anyway, so I'm like sat on this table, and I was just like, I was on the other end of the table, and I was like, god, I need to like sit next to him. I was like, I need to go and sit there, because I was like, at the end of the day, like, there'll never be an opportunity for me to like be in that position or be in the same room as someone like that.
And I know you'd regret it if you didn't say
something. Oh my
something.
god. And I did, and I spoke to him for hours after, like, and he was like, amazing. I could get you in contact with this person.
That's lovely.
And I was like, in my head, I was like, I could have just been at home. I could have just been at home. And, you know, and you just never know. I've met people on flights where I'm just like speaking to the
conversations
person.
Are the best.
Yeah. I would honestly recommend to anyone.
Just get a solo flight to nowhere. Like, just go to Paris and then fly home.
Yeah, literally.
Like, you'll probably meet someone.
Literally.
Oh, it's crazy.
The funny story is, like, I went to Ibiza with my sister lives in Ibiza, but I went to Ibiza with my dad. And I was like to my dad, I was like, you know, when you're just like, I really just want to chill on this flight. I don't like. So we ended up getting separate seats. Love my dad, but he understood. And I was like, I'm just gonna put my headphones in and I'm just gonna like zone out, because I'd like just like been traveling. Anyway, the person next to me just starts talking. He's just like, you know, I was being polite and all that sort of thing, but it was very polite conversation. Like, oh yeah, like, you're going to travel, like, you're going for work, blah blah blah. And he turned out to be the guy that founded like house music in the UK. So he like literally, it was the most crazy thing ever, because I'd literally at the time I'd like said to my dad, I don't want to talk, and then I ended up speaking to this guy for like the whole flight.
That's amazing. And
he's telling me all his life story, that he was gonna like write a book and all that sort of thing, and obviously I got his like contact at the end of it, and I'm still in touch with him now, like I like just in terms of like working with him in some way, because I find you learn so much from people that are way ahead of you, like way in life and everything, and like I can just listen, be a good listener.
Would you attribute that as well to the flying solo element, in that when you are self-employed, like, you're more receptive to people, opportunities? Like, if you were to sit with your family, you wouldn't have even looked around. Like, you don't almost give it the time of day. Like, when you're on your own,
100%.
you thrive differently. Like, you're kind of, it's not like on the hunt, like, it sounds really awful, but like your eyes are more like awake to the things around you. Would you say
100%
with like how you work, you're more receptive, like doing things yourself and just being like, right, okay, what can I get from this situation? And
100%. You're almost, because especially you're in it for yourself as well. Like, you're responsible for like where you take it, and like it's when you are working for yourself, like it's just like, okay, it's only me, like no one else is going to get the work for me, like I've got to do it, and I enjoy it. And I think that's why, like, you have to be really genuine and never it's not necessarily asking for anything, but like building just being like nice to people. That's the biggest thing, just 100%. Being nice to people. Don't expect anything. Like, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, this guy has a really cool job, or like this woman has a really cool job, like I'd love to like get her contact. It's like, at the end of the day, that might not happen. Like, you shouldn't just have a nice conversation. There'll probably be a time where you like meet again, but if it's not that time, whatever. But 100% with like when you're doing stuff on your own, you are so much more receptive. Like, I did when I went off to live in France for 6 months, I went off and did that on my own. And even just like people I was meeting, and you have your own struggles as well. And then it's like, then I did the yacht week like on my own, and it was like, if I need to, after yacht week, after doing that for 5 months in Croatia, I met a guest at the time who was a TV presenter. So when I was on yacht week, I met this guy, and I don't know, I think with my job, because I was doing all the social media and all that sort of thing, it was very much like I was at all the parties and at all the events and all that sort of thing. I was very much within it. So I spent a lot of time with the guests and stuff, but I was a brand ambassador more than anything. So again, like being nice just like was natural as well. But no, I was talking to this guy, and he was like, he ends up being a wildlife TV presenter. And thought nothing of it at the time, just like, you know, we just like connected on Instagram, And just because I was like so fascinated by his job and like what he was doing, because obviously with Yacht Week as well, everyone is quite like entrepreneurial. The people that go on there, it's like very much like people like to party, they're creative most likely, like not to say all of them, but like it's a very niche like set of people that go. So yeah, the opportunity was definitely there. And then I remember he'd asked me like post Yacht Week, I was still at Yacht Week at the time, and he was like, oh, I've got this opportunity for you if you're free these dates. I've got like a press thing in South Africa, like I'd love for you to like come, and like I need someone to like shoot behind the scenes for me and like, you know, create some videos for me. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, surely, I was like, that's not real. Like, no way. Like I hadn't traveled like that unless it was like through work. Like everything I've done like travel wise has been a job. And I think at the time I was like, if I'd had to think about someone else, or like if I was working for someone else, but it was like, I was like, obviously I'm going to go. Yeah. I didn't have to question anything. I didn't have to be like, can I, like, should I? I was like, I'm going to go. Like, you
make it work.
You make it work 100%. And that's why like being so much more receptive to like opportunity, and like just being like having like no one holding you back or nothing holding you back, that you're just like, why wouldn't I go? But I was so burnt out, and I was like, well, looks like I'm going to South Africa. But it was great. It was such an amazing opportunity, and yeah, just building portfolio.
And in terms of like the types of content that you're creating, because you've mentioned about video, things like that, how have you learnt to pivot? Obviously, because social media has changed a lot. We've had TikTok come into the game. How have you navigated that need to really switch your skill set in a way that's like, now video really is the key to success, and if you're not doing something on TikTok or you're not presenting yourself visually, you kind of get lost in translation a little bit. It's not just about like posting things. And how have you integrated that as well into your business model as well? Because it's not just like, here's some photos, post them. It's so much more than that.
It's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. I think with social media and content creation, there is a whole language to it. Like, and I think that's what I say to clients as well. It's like, you know, and that's why it's why it's such a demanding industry right now, because it's like people don't have the time to learn the skills, to learn the language, like to follow the algorithm, to like research all the time, that it's like inevitably you're always going to have to pivot, and your strategy might work at the time, but then it might change in a week or 2 weeks. That's why, like, you just have to be so within it. And that's why I think when you're just in it and in that environment, when it comes to like video content, I like know, obviously it's here to stay for a while, but there'll be something else. It's like my dad was in print. That's kind of like how, but I always try to like integrate like print into like social print stuff and like all that sort of thing. Cause like the like tangible like side of it is like what social media can't do. But anyway, there's so much value in like traditional forms of media as well. But I don't know, with video content, it's kind of just like, it's all about the storytelling. I think I think that's where people find it's like, okay, you're good at making content, that's cool, but it's like, unless you have kind of like, there's intention behind it, you might even know, but it's like when you can like watch something and it is always telling a story, and that's what does well. But I don't know. It's quite a hard.
It's a hard one to answer, and I feel like because it changes so much.
Yeah.
Like 1 minute you're like, yeah, I'm rocking it. Like everything's performing so well.
Yeah.
And then you'll watch like a trending audio from like a month ago, and you're like, this is so awful.
Yeah.
Why was that? How did that even become a thing?
Yeah.
Sometimes I see those TikToks where it's like, these are all the trending audios for each month, and you're like, that feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Because obviously it's not content that's like evergreen. Whereas like I think print still is evergreen.
Yeah, I think it's that whole, I don't know, people want to be given something, and whether that's like you're giving value through social media, or you're given given something that people can take home. I think marketing, that's how marketing works. It's like people want to get something in return. So
and like, how do you get people to remember it as well? Because so much content, like I could scroll 10 posts and I could not remember what I've just watched.
Oh yeah.
Which is worrying and scary. Yeah. But like, how do you market yourself to a point where it does stand out and it's memorable? Like, it's a very like hard thing to gauge.
Yeah, 100%. I think I think finding your style is probably the main thing in that, like having a foundation of like, okay, people can recognize your content or like that sort of thing, rather than copying someone else. It's like, obviously TikTok and everything, it's all about copying, you know?
Yeah.
But when you have your own style, whether that's your particular niche or a particular way that you edit or all that sort of thing, like that's how you have to stand out. But that's not to say that like obviously we are all copying one another.
So in terms of the future of social media, I'm gonna like, just as like a final question, how do you think the landscape is going to change in the next like 6 months? Let's take us to Christmas. Like, do you think there's going to be anything that's kind of, are you noticing anything that's coming in that you're like, right, okay, this is probably going to be a big thing? Or for your clients, like, are you gearing up to anything in particular?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just see so much value in the like offline marketing and how that translates really well online. Obviously, I think even, you know, doing more events and like how can we make this like translate so well onto socials, like how can we create viral moments, like whether that's just like, but at the same time it's really hard to predict, but you have to look at, you know, the overall, and that's where my degree like comes in now. It's like the overall cultural sphere of like, okay, how are we living, you know, right now? And I think that's when you can stay ahead of the curve to a certain extent. Obviously it's always changing, you can't predict, but it's always just like looking at outside influences and like how that will affect how people are engaging on social media. I think community is going to be at the forefront, obviously, more so than just like, because obviously now like I have, when it comes to like followers and like that's changed, like that's not a very good metric when you just have followers, like if they don't translate into people actually engaging with your stuff, or like even you scroll through your feed now and it's like you get things that you don't even know who this account is, you don't follow them, but like your feed is so curated to what you like. So I don't know, I think brands need to just not post for the sake of posting. That won't change. Having a really solid strategy behind what you're doing and the end goal, because what are you doing it for? Because you can't maintain it, and it will get so tedious if you're literally just doing trends for the sake of doing the trends. Like, how does that trend relate to you? How is that then gonna be part of your overall story for your brand?
So would you say that quality is over quantity in that instance? Do you think we'll see people posting less to just post with the trending audio and more like curated? Do you think it will go back maybe to more aesthetic or like curated content?
I think so. Again, like I think there is a niche for everything. I think people either like they like the quality over the quantity and vice versa. But I think, as I say, with the whole offline marketing, it's like, you know, the event space, that sort of thing, that takes time to like, you know, put together. But it's like when people can see that being translated well, it's not just like someone that's just filmed something for the sake of filming. Like there's actually a reason behind it and there's intention. So I think in that, I personally think it will be over like quality over quantity. Just because I think people just need to get smarter with it. You know, they have to just like almost do what they want to do. Like, okay, what does your brand want to do? What does your brand stand for? And then almost like it's like treat the algorithm like not an enemy, but like it is kind of like just work with it and it will work with you. So it's like when you keep feeding it content that you relate to and you want to put out, it will be like, okay,
it will find the right people.
100%, it will find the right people. And like that's the same with any creator that wants to start doing content and, you know, they want to take it somewhere. It's like, just start it, do what you want to do. And there's influence, you might be copying to a certain extent, but the more you do it and the more you're like, I'm just going to post this because I like it and I want to do it.
It's interesting you say that, because when I started a YouTube channel before my podcast, and I was working with an editor, and he basically said, you're not going to grow, it's never going to work, because you need to grow with like fashion hauls.
Right.
And this was around like 2020, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, it's not me. So I posted a few things a bit sort of along the lines of what my podcast is now, but I don't realise well, I've realised it more recently, like that content was this.
Yeah.
I was creating my podcast, but I just didn't know it yet.
Exactly.
So like it does come to you later down the line. Like sometimes it
100%.
just like finds its way, and actually the platform is a podcast rather than YouTube.
Yeah.
So
it's
just it's weird how it all sort of unfolds.
100%. I think it all interlinks. Like even just like stuff that you're like, that's why I video everything as well. I video everything because I'm like, you never know. Like this could work in a trend, or this could work in future like content, all that sort of thing. Like you always just have to just do it. Like just do it. Just start. Just do something, and then it will make sense as you go. And it's almost like just I'm not going to bring up the fast train analogy, but it is actually like that.
Analogy. No, it is. I love it.
But it is just like you have to just keep doing it. And don't get me wrong, like it's taken me a while to get to a point where like whenever I post something, if it goes viral, it's like cool. And then if it doesn't, I'm like cool. Like it really, you can't control it. You genuinely can't. Like if you're posting at the right there's elements like posting at the right time, you know, doing the trend and all that sort of thing. But like, you just can't predict whether your content's going to get pushed out or not. Like the algorithm can just completely not push it out to anyone, or, you know, so it's like, it's not deep. Nothing's deep. So like with the content and being creative,
just
it's not moving. Deep. Just do it. Like,
just do it.
Just do it. No,
I love that. No, I love your passion, and there was clearly a reason why we both met on that night out.
Honestly.
It's been so lovely to have you on the podcast.
So nice. Pleasure.
And thank you for sharing an insight into what you do, and hopefully we'll be inspiring lots of people listening today. So thank you so much. I will pop all the social links for India below, if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on the podcast, they will be in the show notes. Thank you so much, guys, for listening and watching wherever you are. Make sure you check out my socials, and please do give this a rate and review, because that helps me, lets me know that you're enjoying the content. But thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
Stay sweet,
Thank
guys.
you for having me.